All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Eleanor Sturko, and I'm the MLA for Surrey Cloverdale and the Deputy Chair of the Select Standing Committee on Finance and Government Services. I'd like to acknowledge that we're meeting this evening in Cranbrook, which is located on the traditional territories of the Ktunaxa peoples. I would also like to welcome everyone who's listening to and participating in today's meeting. Our committee is currently conducting its annual consultation with British Columbians on their priorities for the next provincial budget. British Columbians who are not presenting to the committee can still share their views by making written comments. The details on how to provide submissions are available on our website at bcleg.ca/consultations. I'll now ask the members of the committee to introduce themselves, starting with MLA Deer.
Thank you so much. My name is Sunita Deer. I'm the MLA for Vancouver-Langara as well as Parliamentary Secretary for International Credentials. It's good to be here. Thank you.
Hello, folks. I'm Steve Morissette, MLA for Kootenay-Monashee and Parliamentary Secretary for Rural Development.
Claire Ratte, MLA for Skeena and official opposition critic for mental health and addictions.
Hello, Brian Tepper, MLA for Surrey Panorama and critic for community safety and integrated services.
Hello, I'm Jennifer Blatherwick. I'm the MLA for Coquitlam-Meriville, and I am the Parliamentary Secretary for Gender Equity.
Assisting the committee today are Daryl Hall and Kayla Wilson from the Parliamentary Committee's Office and Simon Delatt and Amanda Heffelfinger from Hansard Services. We're now going to hear from a number of organizations and individuals about their priorities for the next provincial budget. Each participant will have 5 minutes to speak, followed up by up to 5 minutes of questions from committee members. And we're going to begin this evening's presentations with College of the Rockies' Michael Crow. Welcome.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Am I okay to start? Yeah, right on. Okay, well, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you. Really appreciate the service that each of you provides on behalf of all British Columbians. My name's Michael Crow. I'm the president of College of the Rockies. I'd like to begin with a quick snapshot. Our college is by far the major provider of career education and labor force skills in the East Kootenay region, providing career pathways and upskilling programs that meet the needs of private and public sector employers. We operate 6 campuses located throughout the region and offer a wide range of online, hybrid, and in-person training programs, from full degree programs in business, healthcare, nursing, and education, to adult upgrading and university transfer, to diploma-level programming in business, technology, health, community services, environmental sciences, mining, and the hospitality and tourism sector. We also have extensive program offerings in the skilled trades, which are consistently oversubscribed. There's reliable evidence that we are carrying out our college's mandate effectively, and that's a tribute to the dedication of our faculty and staff and the strength of the partnerships that we have with the industry and service sectors that we work with. Our domestic enrollment continues to grow, and student satisfaction scores remain a strength of the institution. When I talk to employers throughout our region, they tell me that they're happy with our graduates and the skills that they bring to the workplace. They just need more of them. And we've managed to submit a balanced budget for the current fiscal year, although that was only possible by scaling back programming and through workforce restructuring. I want to use the time that I have today to speak directly to a matter of long-term prosperity for British Columbia, the critical importance of higher education, and the indispensable role that colleges play in advancing regional and provincial economic development. I would like to expand our thinking about higher education as simply an expense line on the provincial budget to one that positions higher education as a critical investment, one with significant and tangible returns, including financial returns that far exceed the initial cost. A strong post-secondary system means higher wages for BC workers, healthier families, lower reliance on social services, and stronger tax revenues. These benefits aren't abstract. They are measurable, and they are observed in every corner of our province, especially in rural, remote, and Indigenous communities where colleges are often the primary driver of skills training, business development, and workforce renewal. Colleges are economic engines. We work directly with employers to respond to labor market needs. We train the next generation of business owners, nurses, early childhood educators, trades professionals, entrepreneurs, and community leaders, and we keep people rooted in their communities. BC's recently announced capital infrastructure projects from housing to healthcare to mining projects to clean energy are ambitious, necessary, and welcome. But these projects will only be successful if there are enough skilled workers to bring them to life. With over 1 million job openings forecasted over the next decade, the vast majority requiring post-secondary education, our biggest barrier to progress is not lack of ideas or lack of investment, it's lack of talent. And colleges are the solution. But to deliver, we need the tools. I'm going to skip to my 3 recommendations here. First, I recommend that we modernize the SEAT funding model for trades and apprenticeship programs. The current funding model covers only about 70% of actual direct delivery costs and hasn't been updated for more than 20 years. Trades are at the core of nearly every major economic and infrastructure priority in BC, and we can't expand training and ensure a viable workforce without adequate funding. Second, increase core operating grants to public post-secondary institutions. Stable, adequate funding is essential for our ability to provide accessible education. And third, establish a targeted investment fund to support colleges that are advancing innovative solutions to local and regional workforce development priorities. The return on investment I mentioned earlier isn't just higher wages, lower unemployment, or stronger tax revenues, although those are worthy outcomes on their own. It's stronger communities, more resilient industries, and a province that has the talent it needs to thrive. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Emily Morissette.
Thank you, Michael. Could you just explain to me your 3rd recommendation a little?
Yeah, thank you. I kind of was rushed at the end. Thank you for asking that. So I think my 3rd recommendation was around the establishment of a targeted investment fund. So that's focused on workforce development. Traditional post-secondary programs are, what we'd be familiar with, certificates, diplomas, and degrees. They're 1 or 2 or 4-year credentials. By the time an industry partner comes to us with a workforce need, and we go back and develop the program, go through all the approval processes that are required, start to offer the program, and start to graduate our first set of students, it could be anywhere from 3 to 6 years. And that's not fast enough to keep up with current labor market needs. And so there's a lot of really innovative work happening in higher ed right now that's reducing training time, focusing on competencies, recognizing experience and skills that people already have, and focusing only on the gaps that are required to meet a particular labor market need. These are really innovative programs that have huge potential for transforming our workforce. And I'm proposing that we establish a small targeted fund to innovate those types of programs to get British Columbians to the workplace much more quickly than our traditional models are able to do. Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks for the question.
Emily Deer.
Thank you so much. So, touching up upon what you just said, will these be targeted towards foreign educated professionals?
Yeah, that's a really important question. So, very similar models are being used to recognize foreign credentials. In fact, we've developed a pilot project that recognizes the competencies of foreign trained healthcare workers. And we've been able to demonstrate that we can fast track those workers into the workplace by validating the skills that they bring with them and experience that they bring with them, and then focusing our training just on the gaps that exist. And we can set whatever criteria we want in terms of competency. We assess the current state of skills, and then every learner gets a personalized path, so they're filling the gaps that they have. So we've been able to demonstrate huge success in deploying these models on a pilot basis. And I think with some targeted funding, there would be opportunities to expand those pilots to meet some of the major workforce needs we have in healthcare and in other sectors.
Thank you. Thanks.
I have another if no one.
Okay, Emily Morsad.
On your first request, modernize seed funding for the trades, could you just elaborate on that? I understand that talking to other rural colleges that they actually lose money on trades training.
Yeah, that's right. So we're a training provider on behalf of the province to provide trades training in a number of skilled trades. We receive a certain funding allocation for each seat that we deliver in each skilled trades programming. That funding envelope that we receive for each seat covers about 70% of the total cost of delivery for that seat, just direct costs. And so that means that we are subsidizing the rest of that training seat by 30%. That's coming out of our core operating grant, which is supposed to be used to advance other priorities, programming priorities at the institution. That model, that funding model that was used to establish that seat allocation was established over 20 years ago and hasn't been updated over that time. And of course, we all know what prices have done over the last 20 years. So I think we're long overdue. And, the argument I made was that, if we're hoping to advance these major infrastructure projects, there's no chance that we can train the workforce that's needed without adequate funding. We were able to get away with that offset because of international students and the revenue that we were generating through international enrollment. But unfortunately, those days are behind us now. And so it's left quite a substantial deficit in our operating budgets that puts skilled trades workers, our ability to provide skilled trades workers into the labor market at risk, which ultimately puts these major capital projects at risk.
Thank you for that.
All right, thank you very much for the presentation. We'll go now to our next presenter. Thank you for your time. And next we're going to hear from the Regional District of East Kootenay from Rob Gay. Welcome. And you'll have 5 minutes presentation time, followed by 5 minutes for potential questions from members of our committee, and you can begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Deputy Chair, and thank you all for coming. Good evening. My name is Rob Gay, and I'm the Chair of the Regional District of East Kootenay, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to present today. I'd like to acknowledge that the lands that I live, learn, work, and play, and raise my family are the traditional territory and the homelands of the Tanawa Nation. I want to begin by thanking the committee members, not only the work you do, but for coming to Cranbrook. Your willingness to hear directly from community leaders across the province is appreciated. I have 5 priorities I was hoping to present, but I know the rules have 3, so I'll keep an eye on the clock and we'll see where we go. For the clerks of the committee, I have copies for you, so if I miss something, I'll provide those for you. Number 1, remove the PST on emergency vehicles. We are asking the province to remove the provincial sale tax on emergency vehicles. These vehicles, fire trucks and search and rescue vehicles, are essential life-saving equipment. In most cases, they're funded through local tax dollars, community grants, donations, and the added cost of PST can be significant, especially as we see the cost of fire apparatus escalating so quickly. For example, the RDK has 3 fire trucks on order right now. The average price is $760,000. PST on these 3 trucks will be an initial $161,000. For small municipalities and regional district, every dollar matters. Removing the tax would not only ease financial pressures, but also send a strong message to the public that public safety is a provincial priority. Emergency vehicles should be viewed as safety equipment and be exempt from PST. Number 2, funding for Highway 3 passing lane. We're requesting funding for a 1.6 kilometer eastbound passing lane at Morrissey on Highway 3 near Fernie, BC. Highway 3, as you know, is a major transportation corridor between Hope and the Alberta border as well, and this road actually connects to a border crossing at Rooseville, Montana. The highway is vital for commercial trucking. Elk Valley Resources have a staff of 4,000 people, so there's certainly a lot of traffic every day, and tourism, of course, is big in our area. As traffic increases, so do delays and collisions, especially in areas without safe passing opportunities. A strategically placed passing lane would improve safety, reduce driver frustration, and support the movement of goods and services across the region. The Ministry of Transport and Transit has identified a location, completed the engineering, and is waiting funding. This is a relatively small project, but one would have huge impact for the goals of transportation and safety. This has been a priority of the Highway 3 Mayors and Chairs Coalition, and the project was placed on hold in 2021 due to funding constraints. We would like consideration in the 26 budget on that highway. We're asking for financial support for small rural water systems to allow them to be upgraded to meet current provincial standards. Many of these systems are operated by improvement districts that are established decades ago, often by volunteers, and now face aging infrastructure, aging volunteers, and increased complexity of regulation. The province would like to phase out improvement districts, and the RDK agrees. We're willing to take over these water systems, but they must be up to standard. The expectations for water quality and system performance have risen, as they should, but the ability of small systems to meet those standards without help is very limited. This isn't just a matter of compliance, it's about protecting public health and ensuring equity. A provincial support program, possibly modeled after existing infrastructure grants, would make a major difference in bringing these systems up to standard. Once up to standard, the RDK is willing to take over responsibilities of operations and maintenance. I've got a minute, so I'm just going to touch on these two. I think most of you are familiar with the Community Works Fund. So the Community Works Funds, we're able to use it for municipalities. We used to be able to use it for third parties, but that was changed. But we do not treat our First Nation partners as municipalities. They're treated like third parties. And what we would like is somebody to review those rules. We've got situations we would really like to form partnerships. It goes a long ways toward these shared investments for both the Indigenous and non-Indigenous communities. And I've got some good examples, but I'm going to be short on time, of where we could, really enhance the economic development for our communities as well as the First Nations. The other last thing I would like to talk about is victim services in the RCMP. We play a role as a middleman in victim services, and we don't know why. As a local government, we lack the experience and direct oversight in victim services. We manage remotely with no role in assigning work or evaluating its effectiveness, which limits our ability to ensure quality or provide guidance and coaching to those delivering the service. The RCMP, who interact directly with the victim service workers and assign the files, are better positioned to oversee service delivery. Having the RCMP administer victim services would certainly remove unnecessarily layers of administration and establish clear lines of accountability and ensure stable provincial funding. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you very much. Emily Rattay.
If you wouldn't mind, I would like to hear some of those examples that you were talking about for the Community Works Funds.
Yeah, so for this example, it's called the Shuswap Band, which is in a little area north of here, Windermere. So they have ample water, a creek called Holland Creek. They've got lots of water. We do not have water, and there's opportunities for housing development, for business development along the strip that goes into Invermere. Right now, there's a Canadian Tire store. There's an A&W. They're there, and they have very limited water. The Shuswap Band has a lot of water, and the rules that they've got, I guess under the Indian Act, I'm not sure where the rules are, limits to the money being spent on reserve only for reserve housing. This is a huge economic opportunity, and we would like to partner, bring some of that Community Works Fund. They would bring some funding to it. It would allow us to increase housing, which the province would like us to do, increase economic development for the band. And I think there's a win-win situation there. So that's the example of that. And I don't know why they chose to treat the First Nation government different than they did with the municipalities when they would change the rules. So that one is just somebody with the right pen could change that pretty quick. Thank you for the question.
Emily Morissette.
Thanks, Rob, for that. I'm pretty familiar with lots of these things, having sat as a municipal director on a regional district, but remove the PST on emergency vehicles is interesting. I hadn't heard that before. That would help for sure.
It's just a step of what the province does now. So if I go, and I don't work in the woods anymore, but when I worked in the woods, if I went and got safety boots, if I got safety vest, it's exempt from tax. So this is just extending the safety and emergency thing. And I'll give you an example if I got a minute. So the local search and rescue were trying to put money together for a truck, and that was some years ago, so it was only 300. Now we talk more. But what they were doing is, like many of us, we get an allowance for our dinner. So let's say tonight your dinner is $30. But you only really spend $25. They would take that extra $5 and put it into the fund. Well, when you're trying to earn money, $5 at a time, 7% PST is a big number, even on a $300,000 truck. So for these volunteer groups and whatnot, that would be a huge savings, and it would affect us all across the province. So I think that would be a real win. Thanks, Steve.
Well, thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you.
Seeing no further questions, we'll move to our next presenter.
Where can I leave the notes?
Just leave it with Kayla
Okay.
at the back,
Thank you
and
very
she
much.
will pass that on to us. All right, our next presenter is going to be from the Invasive Species Council of BC, Gail Wallen. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So we'll have 5 minutes presentation time, followed by potential 5 minutes questions from our committee, and you may begin when you're ready.
Great. Well, thank you very much, and thank you for having us here. I'm here to talk a little bit about invasive species, which actually relates to all of you and all your communities. It's one of those issues that actually touches everybody from the business to the conservation world. So the reason we're here is because they have huge environmental and economic impacts, and they don't belong here. This isn't dealing with species that change habitat with warming climates. This is species who have been introduced. They're non-native. They don't belong here. For example, we know in Canada, on an outdated national report, they cost us over $2 billion a year for just invasive plants, not talking about species. We know one invasive plant on a research report we did a few years ago was $140 million a year for the loss annually for one plant, and we've got lots of plants. Mussels, whirling disease, or others, and there's lots of data out there. But in addition to the economic impact, I also want to talk about something that many people don't pay attention to. That's a community and cultural impact. First Nations are often losing access to traditional plants, to traditional medicines, because they've been overtaken by fields of invasive plants. So there's a huge loss. Many of you are from cities. Your trees, your green cover, which is absolutely important for nature, but also for cooling your communities, are at risk from invasive pests coming in, forest pests. There actually are many invasive plants that we've brought in to garden with that actually put our kids in hospitals, the myrtle spurges, the giant hogweeds, and so they actually have a health cost to us, and we've been working with some of the medical profession on that. In order to take action on invasive species, prevention is critical. We have 3 recommendations. One of them is we need a strong, committed leadership within the province. Yes, it takes an all-government approach, it takes an all-of-community approach, but we need to have a single minister in charge. They need to work with a cross-government approach. It needs to involve, all the dirt ministries, as we call them, the Indigenous leadership, the local government leadership within the provincial government, whether it's Parmar, who's got the biggest investment with invasive plants and forest pest, or whether it's Walrus with Minister O'Neill, because they have a broad mandate on stewardship. Let's have a strong, committed champion for it. Recommendation 2 is taking a look at, we've got very outdated regulatory tools. So the second action is to strengthen and enforce our regulatory tools. So let's strengthen them. Even if we don't change them, we need to start enforcing them. That many invasive species fall between the cracks. Many of the existing outdated regulations are not enforced, which is why you can go and see fields or roads covered with invasive species that people are then moving to new location. So as we establish, BC's calling for 30 by 30 and protecting biodiversity lands, well, if we don't ensure that there's prevention measures put in, those same biodiversity losses will be impacted by invasive species. So we need to have regulatory tools that will ensure that we're enforcing it, particularly when you're seeing fire and floods. Those are ways that we will greatly spread invasive plants to new areas, both up in the water and post-fire. So we've called for a performance indicator to have in government that demonstrates that you're making progress. There's lots of good things happening. We're just not always measuring or celebrating it. Third thing, which I know you're hearing from the other speakers, is we need to stabilize and increase funding. So particularly when we're seeing climatic events like fire and floods, those increase the risk to your communities. Many of our invasive plants actually increase the risk of fire to our communities. And right now is a time when across BC we're trying to reduce the risk. So we need to make sure that we have stable funding. Most of the partnership funding that comes from the government to groups like ourselves, et cetera, comes out at fiscal year end, and you don't know if you're getting it, and you don't know if it's for 1 year or more year. That's really dangerous when you're managing invasive species. You can't be doing it on a 1 year basis. You need to be planning ahead. When we take a look at some of our commitments around protecting our nature here in BC, whether it's protecting our biodiversity, whether we're wanting to protect our fresh water, we want to protect our healthy ranges, which actually have many species at risk, we need to make sure that we're taking action and investing in the prevention and monitoring to make sure that all the plans that called for invasive species prevention are actually being enforced and monitored. So calling on you to, in the 2026 budget, that you actually commit and show leadership on both having a champion, investing in invasive species as a line item in budgets rather than post-year, and that you recognize and become an invasive-wise province. BC is ahead. We've got leadership in British Columbia that is recognized across Canada and across the world. Let's do better with our work and recognize the leadership we've got. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that presentation. Members of the committee, looking to you for questions. MLA Blatherwick.
Hello, and thank you for your advocacy on this issue. We had a lovely presentation earlier about mussels.
Hey.
Yeah. So can we just talk a little bit more about you're wanting stabilized funding over multi-year. Now, the Invasive Species Council of BC does also support like a multiplicity of like smaller local organizations. Are you thinking that there would be like one funding source and then you would distribute that, or so, right now are your members applying for all those things individually?
So we're a provincial organization. There's lots of partners across the province. There's regional committees, there's Ducks Unlimited. So we're actually calling for $15 million, what we called for last year also. That's provincial government funding that also enables you to have staff inside government to do the work that's needed, and then you can partner out. So we didn't come here just asking for money for us. We're coming to ask for money for investment in invasive species, both within government and to enable you to partner. Partnering with us on March 31st and letting us know is not a safe way to go, because 1 year you're not going to be able to do that, and that's been the pattern you've had for 20 to 30 years.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Seeing no further questions, we'll go to our next presenter. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you.
Next, we will be hearing from the Canadian Mental Health Association, Kootenays branch, Natalie Hake. Good afternoon.
Hello, how are you?
Very good. So you'll have a 5-minute window for presentation, followed by up to 5 minutes of questions by committee members, and you may begin when you're ready.
Thank you. So again, my name is Natalie Hake. I'm the Director for Crisis Services and Public Education for the Canadian Mental Health Association here in the Kootenays. So we cover the East and West Kootenay region. One of the programs that I proudly manage are the BC Crisis Lines. So out of our province, right here in Cranbrook, we have a provincial routing. We answer 1-800-SUICIDE, 310 Mental Health, and the BC Crisis Line Network, which are all very, very busy. So I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak to you and plead our need. I'm here asking for your consideration to be included and approved for the 2026 budget. Statistically, and according to the coroner's service, in BC, 639 people died or decided to take their life by suicide in 2023. We also know that depression and anxiety are the #1 mental health issues, with anxiety being the most prevalent right across the board. These are many of the leading reasons why people are calling the crisis lines and sometimes talk or act around suicide ideation as a result of how they're feeling at that time. I'm here asking for your assistance to increase our ability to answer and help more people in crisis situations that could potentially result in death. We want more help to reduce this number. We want our community members to feel safe, and we want them to feel connected. Our crisis staff are very well trained to navigate and de-escalate situations, crisis situations, which ultimately reduces the number of calls to 911. It reduces the number of visits to our emergency rooms. And instead, we want to empower the person in crisis to develop a plan of safety with our responder, and we need more of these compassionate people on our team. However, our BC crisis lines are underfunded. We're funded through PHSA. We are underfunded. And in order to have the opportunity to help more people in crisis, I am asking from the 2026 budget have some funding from the 2026 budget to be taken into consideration, so we can bring more crisis line responders on to support, as well as creating potentially a couple more jobs for people in our community who really want to help. The crisis line responders take calls from people who are having a bad day to their very worst day. We literally are hearing the cries of the world. So many more people are accessing the crisis lines, not only for support with suicide, but also for that non-judgmental emotional support. These lines are a form of intervention and potentially life-saving. I'm here asking for $80,000 from the 2026 budget to help assist us with creating more job opportunities to help other people in need. So we know crisis looks different for absolutely everybody. We understand that. On the lines, a very typical situation for our callers that need to be heard, a listening ear. Our responders hear many stories and experiences that are situating around emotional pain and trauma, and the callers are often very scared, confused, and angry. The responders help navigate these calls by listening, genuinely listening, and providing resources if needed, helping with a safety plan for suicide if needed, or an intervention if needed. But we're always looking at doing the least invasive intervention as possible. So our crisis line responders are very well trained at de-escalating, so we can prevent a crisis intervention. We have also received calls back from crisis line crisis line callers, sometimes even the next day, thanking us for helping them in that moment. We provide debriefing support to our responders. They're very well supported due to potential burnout, and the opportunity to bring on more staff and support would be very, very welcome. Again, I am here pleading to you. An ask of $80,000 to help save a life is a small price to pay for a close friend, a neighbor, a family member, maybe even yourself. While we hate to think someone close to us will need the line, having that funding is going to ensure that somebody is there. I have worked on these lines and managed them for over 18 years. I've seen a massive increase in line usage and the need for support at a very rapid rate. And with your support and funding, together we can save lives and provide support to those in crisis. Thank you for your consideration and for your time.
Thank you very much. Emily Rattay.
Thank you. I'm just wondering if you can break down what your current funding is right now and usage. So just to kind of have a clear idea of, are you looking to fund crisis line responders full-time and they may take, 1 or 2 calls a day, or are they busy the entire time? How many are there right now? What does the funding look like currently, just to kind of paint a picture? And has it changed significantly in the last few years?
So previously we had a contract through Interior Health for the crisis lines. That changed over to the Provincial Health Services Authority 2 years ago. We had a bit of a cut to our funding. Right now our branch here in BC receives $173,000 a year to fund answering these calls. We are low. We have to cut tight. Our budget. The expectation is from the province that we find money elsewhere. Unfortunately, that's just the reality of it. That's why I'm here pleading for this. So right now at our site, we also run a 988 suicide line, which is very different. That's federal. This is provincial. So right now we run 5 staff. We never hire full-time because that's just going to burn them out. You can never possibly answer a crisis line as a full-time job. So our longest standing responder right now covers 28 hours a week. Now, her shifts, she can answer anywhere from 6 to 12 calls.
Emily Blatherwick.
Thank you so much for your presentation, and thank you for the work you do.
Thank you very much.
And so you're looking to expand beyond your current capacity. What is your call drop rate Like, how many calls are you not answering because you don't have staff?
So we are on a routing system. So if we are busy on the lines or we're not online at the time, the call will get routed to the next site. So it is a provincial thing. However, and I don't have the stats for this, I apologize, but when the lines are busy or the responders are busy provincially, those calls are getting transferred over to other provinces. We want to keep our callers talking to people that are in their area, that understand the lifestyle, that can support them. We want to support our people here.
Thank you.
Emily Morissette.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry, I'm not clear. What area do you cover?
All of BC.
All of BC
Yeah.
with those?
But I'm here right now speaking up for our branch here. We're part
I
of the
see.
BC Crisis Line
Okay.
Network. We really need more help on the lines. Here's what I've been working on. I've been working really hard to bring on volunteers. Before the pandemic, it was easy. It is no longer easy. And statistically, volunteerism is dropped by about 65% in BC since the pandemic. It's a struggle. I have 2 volunteers right now. I used to be close to 20 years ago. We're in crisis. So this is another reason why I'm here asking for support. Nowadays, not a lot of people can afford to volunteer. Right, and if we have some funding behind that, even for a year, that's that many more people we're going to help. Right, that's my
So just to be clear, so you're covering all of BC. There's not another site like this doing these 3 crisis lines.
Oh
3.
yeah, there's 8.
Okay.
We're all underfunded.
Oh, so you all cover all of BC.
It's all 3 lines. It's like a rotating schedule. So
that wasn't clear to me.
typically, if I'm calling the crisis line from Cranbrook, it's going to shoot me over to Cranbrook responders first. If our responders are busy or if we don't have any staff or volunteers on, it'll go to the next available responder. So, being part of the Kootenays, we want to build that team. We want to make sure we're answering more calls. There's an expectation to have more calls answered. However, our hands are a bit tied there. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for your
Thank you.
presentation. I see no further questions from committee members, so enjoy the rest of your evening.
I will. I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And our next presentation will come from School District Number 5, Southeast Kootenay, Chris Johns. Thank you very much for joining us. And you'll also have 5 minutes presentation time followed by up to 5 minutes of questions from the committee. And you can begin when you're ready.
Good. Thank you very much, and welcome to our lovely part of the world. First of all, I want to start off with the acknowledgement. I would like to acknowledge that I am presenting today on the homelands of the Ktunaxa people and the chosen home of the Rocky Mountain Métis. The footprint of School District 5 is fully contained within the Ktunaxa Nation. The board assumes the responsibility for governing the education system in our district in a progressive and educationally sound manner. The board is fully accountable to our public. The district covers the southeast corner of the province and includes the major centres of Cranbrook, Jaffrey, Fernie, Elkford, and Sparwood. We have 2 recommendations. The first one deals with special education funding. We're seeking an increase in special education funding, and it's required to appropriately address the required supports and services, for example, counseling, occupational therapy, physiotherapy, school psychology, and speech-language therapy needed, and to increase the 87% 6-year graduation completion rate for all of our SD5 students. All students have unique educational needs. Most students are able to be educated within the basic allocation funding. However, the level of 1, 2, and 3 funding for special education is insufficient to meet the needs of all applicable students. In 24-25, the present school year, the district received $13.2 million rounded in special education funding and expended $18.5 million. Therefore, the board supplemented the special education funding annually by $5.4 million and out of the general operating funds. And for the last 2 years, it averages out to about 30% that we've had to supplement special education funding. In September 2024, approximately 17% of the School District 5's school-age student population were identified as having diverse abilities and disabilities and required additional support to meet their needs and graduate with dignity and purpose. We have 400 Level 1 and 2 students that require the most support and 272 Level 3 students that also require additional supports. These are the highest historical counts experienced in SD5. We are unable to provide learning assistance to students that require a minor amount of support due to this lack of funding, as we already significantly supplement the special education provided for our students with the highest needs. Mental illness is the next crisis caused by financial and social strain, and that's coming out of the pandemic years. Targeted grant funding for mental health in 24-25 was only $52,000. This has been identified as ongoing funding until the 26-27 school year. While this amount is appreciated, the nominal nature of the grant greatly limits our ability to best meet the needs for our students. Targeted funding for students with diverse learning needs and abilities would work best for our district. Additional supports and services funding is required to properly service the needs of our students and to continue to improve on our 87% graduation rate. Adequate funding to meet these needs is the moral and ethical thing to do. Our second recommendation is related to school life cycle funding. For too long, the focus has been on fitting kids into spaces. It is about time we start building spaces for students and their learning needs and their stages of development. The province needs to address aging infrastructure that is past its end of life in the education sector. Districts outside seismic areas have continued to maintain a level of maintenance which is barely acceptable to operate schools. The learning environment for students and the health and safety of our employees suffers as a result of our aging facilities. The Facility Condition Index, FCI, determines the condition of a school. FCI is expressed as a range of 0.00 to 1.0, with 0.00 being a new facility and 0.6 and above requiring immediate action. Provincially, the FCA average is 0.46, and the SD5 average is 0.54. A rating between 0.5 and 0.6 is given a poor rating and does not meet requirements. Immediate attention is required to replace multiple SD5 schools with significant building systems being at the end of their life cycle. Parts may no longer be in stock or are exceedingly difficult to obtain. There's an elevated risk of failure of some key safety systems, such as fire suppression. School District 5 has 14 of 16 schools that fall within this unacceptable range, and the average age of our facilities is 50 years. Building repair costs are becoming significant. There are necessary upgrades needed to properly serve our students and staff at the 74-year-old Mount Baker Secondary, the largest secondary in the East and West Kootenay. These upgrades include a new elevator, a dust collection system, a fire safety system, among other systems. SD5 has been advocating for a replacement school for over 20 years. Millions of dollars spent in regular repairs and maintenance is a short-sighted solution to a long-term problem. The fire at Amy Woodland Elementary in Cranbrook in June 24 resulted in the displacement of over 200 students. In March 2025, the district received ministry support to pursue a business case for a new school building. The district will work closely with the Ministry of Education and Childcare and the Ministry of Infrastructure to create a modern, inclusive, and welcoming learning environment. The district has been approved for a new elementary school in Fernie, and this will be a significant help to our fastest growing community. However, our other communities are in dire need of replacement buildings, as noted above. I have left the exact numbers of the costs with the staff.
Thank you so much for that presentation, and I now look to committee members for questions. Emily Blatherwick.
Thank you for your presentation. So can I just clarify, your total overall 6-year graduation rate is 87%, or what is your grad rate for your students with diverse needs and abilities?
For what? I'm sorry?
Your students with diverse needs and abilities, what's their graduation rate?
That is rolled into that number.
Yes.
But I don't know what.
Oh, you don't know that? It's a separate number. And so for your students with special needs, you said that there's like a significant increase over the last few years for the...
Yes.
And how many of those are category Q, do you know?
Oh, I mean, I didn't even get into that because that
Yeah.
gets into the weeds in terms of all of the other areas that are not funded that we have to find the supplementary funding for.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay, and so I'm from the Lower Mainland, so of course in a seismic zone, and the funding model for applying for replacement buildings is slightly different. So when you, and this is something that I'm not aware of, are you on a separate priority list than the seismic replacements?
Well, that's an interesting question because every time we've broached that question, we've been told we're on a list for replacement at some point. But we don't know where the list is, what the list is, where we are on the list. So it's a unknown entity. Although we have been campaigning, I've made, I think, 8 presentations to the Select Standing Committee, of which we always include the replacement for Mount Baker.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Seeing no further questions, we'll conclude there. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're one
Thanks
of
for your time.
several districts bringing forward similar concerns as well. So many of the questions I think that would have been asked, and a lot of information gathered on the needs of our school districts, which we know are great. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate that.
We'll go to our next presenter, which is Tanya Molly, and she is from 4-H BC. But you didn't bring any bunnies for us to pet, I see.
I didn't bring any bunnies, but I do have some good stories personal stories about bunnies, bunny projects in 4-H.
Well, thank you so much for being here this afternoon. You'll have 5 minutes for presentation and then up to 5 minutes of questions from members of the committee, and you may begin whenever you're ready.
Great, thank you. Thank you for allowing me to be here today. I'm here as the president of 4-H BC, and I'm here to answer the question put forward by Minister Bailey. What is important to us for considerations for the 2026 budget? I'm speaking on behalf of 4-H members, volunteers, alumni, and partners within BC and the 4-H program. 4-H BC has proudly been serving youth for 111 years in the province, fostering a strong and invaluable partnership along the way with the Ministry of Agriculture. This year, more than any other year in the recent history, we've seen the ministry prioritize the support of youth in agriculture, an essential investment in the future in British Columbia. However, the current climate in government has hindered the ministry's ability to fully execute on this support. We are witnessing reductions that will directly impact the quality and delivery of our youth programs. Without sustained investment, the ability to continue fostering leadership, innovation, and agricultural education among young people will be compromised. To address these challenges, I have 2 key recommendations for this committee today. Firstly, prioritize the allocation of funding of youth development specialists within the Ministry of Agriculture. These specialists are instrumental in equipping young people with the skills and knowledge needed to pursue careers in agriculture and contribute ultimately to the province's food security. Secondly, prioritize financial support for agricultural expertise, resources, and activities that can be executed through 4-H BC, or for that matter, other agricultural youth programs within the province. 4-H BC has consistently demonstrated that investing in youth and the 4-H program yields a positive and impactful return for British Columbians. For example, a survey conducted in 2024 saw that 44% of the 4-H alumni enter into professional careers in the agricultural industry, as compared to 1% of the general public. That is significant. Additionally, nationally, 4-H BC delivers the greatest number of agricultural projects by youth in our program, even more than Alberta, Saskatchewan, or Ontario. What that tells me, as president of 4-H BC, as a leader, as a volunteer within 4-H in the province, is that we're doing something great. We're being really successful. And the Ministry of Agriculture has a large, and our relationship with the ministry has a large part to do with that. That being said, we are one of the lowest funded provinces from a government perspective compared to those other provinces. For example, Alberta is receiving $1 million in funding annually. Ontario is receiving $750,000 annually. And New Brunswick, while comparatively in terms of enrollment in 4-H, is receiving $450,000 annually. A secure food system driven by a thriving agricultural sector is among the most crucial investments the government can make to support BC families, promote a healthy community and province, build connected communities, and strengthen the province's economy. Investing in 4-H BC is investing in British Columbia's future. By empowering young leaders today, we ensure a prosperous, sustainable, and resilient agricultural industry for generations to come. I would invite you to ask me several questions about 4-H. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Emily Blatherwick.
Sorry, so what is your current level of funding?
So currently we just signed a financial ended a 10-year MOU agreement with the Ministry of Agriculture at the end of March of this year. We signed a new financial agreement, which is looking at a 3-year agreement. The previous agreement was $87,000 annually we're receiving, plus some additional SCA funding that was coming in annually at about $67,000 over the last 5 years. This year we're seeing $200,000, so we have seen a financial increase, followed by $250,000 in the second year and $250,000 in the third year. However, so that's positive. However, what we are seeing is in our memorandum of understanding with the ministry, we have a relationship where we have support from the youth development specialists within the ministry. And what we're seeing is where we were at 3.5 FTEs for those folks, they are moving us down to ultimately 1.3 by the end of the second year. So what that means is the gains we've made in terms of that financial support from the ministry really ultimately is balancing out with the reduction of that support. And I can't stress enough the importance of, while funding is critically important to all organizations, the ministry funding only makes up around 20% of our annual revenue. So we've done a really good job. We have a foundation. We have strong support from industry partners. We have a strong team that work really hard to financially support the initiatives. Where we really lay the bulk of our value is in the agricultural expertise that comes from the support of the youth development specialists. And that reduction in their participation in the program and support is what is presenting a significant challenge to us going forward.
Emily Tepper.
Hi, nice to see you. Glad we got you in here. And what do you have in the Lower Mainland for clubs?
In the Lower Mainland?
Yeah, is there opportunity? A bunch of us from the Lower Mainland.
Surrey is actually, Surrey is one area that we're trying to invest in. There's been some projects that, pilot projects that have been trying to get going there. We see a strong support within the Fraser Valley area this is on the island. I apologize, I don't have specific numbers for that, but definitely a high density and a large support from that area. We do, though, within 4HBC, it's broken down into 7 regions. And so I would say the central interior and the Okanagan area are amongst, and the island actually are amongst our leading areas for registration and participation in the program.
Yeah, just to be clear, you do have programs that are spread out throughout the province.
Absolutely.
It's more what I was going for there.
Absolutely, we do. Yeah. In fact, one of the Lower Mainland plays a really key part in we call them programs. It's the summer travel opportunities. 2 in particular is one called Food for Thought, and that's where we take the current top 10 commodities within BC agriculture. We take youth from all over the province. They go to the Lower Mainland and they tour those facilities, operations, whatever that meet those top 10 commodity pieces. So, for example, they go to these massive greenhouse facilities that produce peppers, mushrooms, tilapia farms. We have the chicken people presenting dairy, of course, all types of that. The other second program that's really critical is AgriCareer Quest, which takes youth and focuses on it from a careers perspective and networking youth. They travel from the central interior down to the lower mainland, and they stop at various agribusiness sites where they meet with those employers, learn about that industry. And it's vast. It's agri-tech, it's dairy, it's one-man operations or woman operations. So,
Emily Morissette.
Thank you.
I just wasn't quite clear on you said you've got a new funding agreement, but then you said the FTE was going from I think 2.5 to 1.3. Is that separately funded, or how does that work?
It's considered an in-kind support, so it would be part of our memorandum of understanding. And during this negotiation process, we separated out the financial agreement from the in-kind or MOU agreement. And so it's 3.5 that we've had down to 1.3 at the end of year 2. That being said, we actually, for the last nearly 2 years, have actually only had 2.5 or 2 youth development specialists. Those positions became vacant because folks moved on to other positions, and the ministry never filled them. So we actually have been operating under that contract agreement for nearly 2 years. And
okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. That concludes our time to hear about 4-H today, but I really appreciate your time. So thank you very much. Is there any other business for the committee?
Great.
Thank you very much. So thank you to everyone who presented. That concludes our meeting today, and our committee will be in Quesnel, beautiful Quesnel, tomorrow morning for the next public hearing. So now I'll seek a motion to adjourn. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. This meeting is now adjourned.